Eskom officials are this afternoon briefing President Cyril Ramaphosa on the power crisis. They've since cancelled a scheduled media briefing, saying they'll provide an update after their meeting with the president. Yesterday, President Cyril Ramaphosa met with various stakeholders to discuss the ongoing rolling blackouts, among other issues. This after he cancelled his trip to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, in light of the power crisis. People living in South Africa continue to experience prolonged rotational power cuts as stage 6 of rolling blackouts continue without any relief in sight. Let's take this story further. Then we're now joined via Zoom by Bertha Dlamini. She's the founding president of the African Women in Energy and Power. Very good afternoon to you, Bertha. Thank you very much for joining us here on SABC News, ma'am.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. Let's start here. I mean, what is your reaction? What was your reaction, really, upon hearing that the president cancelled his trip to Davos to deal with the energy crisis? I mean, what difference can he make, given the fact that this has been weeks of this problem?
Sure. So the World Economic Forum is an important conversion of public and private sector stakeholders that convene to discuss global economic problems. It is important for state or state presidents that attend to have positive stories about their countries to share and to lobby support. We don't have a positive story. We have an energy crisis. We have an economic crisis. So it was quite encouraging to see that the president has taken a decision not to go to the World Economic Forum. And we, as stakeholders in the sector, we hope that his resources will be focused on supporting Eskom's maintenance program to ensure that we can get the fleet operating optimally as soon as possible.
And interestingly, you call it a crisis. And in fact, I was going to ask you that whether you believe we are at a point of being able to call this, in fact, a crisis. I mean, it's been some time now, as I've said, that the country has been placed on stage 6, a rolling blackout. Just how bad does this picture does this paint of the energy, and I'll use your word, crisis in this country?
Looking at the trend of our load shedding and the stages that we have been for the number of weeks now rolling into months, it's a bleak situation. We do not see in the near future that we will be able to rid ourselves of load shedding. It is important for Eskom to receive the support that it requires to ramp up its maintenance program, to strengthen its maintenance program governance, to ensure that it has the right resources to maintain the fleet. And yes, it is a crisis because energy is such a crucial component of our economy, and our economy was already ailing post-COVID-19 restrictions. We had barely recovered from that impact. Now that we are facing load shedding, it has a massive impact on small businesses. Even notable retailers are scaling down their operations. It's a signal of a crisis, and therefore we hope that the president remaining behind and consulting with various stakeholders, he will be able to summon the requisite resources to ensure that Eskom can ramp up its maintenance program.
I mean, you've already started to do so, but what I did want to ask was, you know, as African women in energy and power, and of course you being the founding president, what is your input to this whole conversation? And certainly we hear that the president will be meeting various stakeholders, and that, in fact, just this afternoon, he's meeting with Eskom officials who are briefing him on the power crisis. What would you say? What would your input then be to this? I mean, you are part of what we are calling the relevant stakeholders.
Sure. We are always looking at opportunities to embed the participation of women, youth, and persons with disabilities as value-adding suppliers across the value chains. And so we follow these trends quite closely to identify where women can play a meaningful role so that they're not left behind. The challenge we have is when you have an economic crisis such as the one that we're facing and an energy crisis, it's very easy for the powers that be to neglect socio-economic development targets and imperatives. And so we're staying close to ensure that entrepreneurs are actively identifying opportunities to be part of the solutions to the crisis.
Yeah, you talk about women, and you talk about women empowerment, and talking about the issue of entrepreneurs. Interestingly, a lot of the SMMEs, and I'm sure you would have heard, these are some of women-owned businesses, small businesses who are actually really bearing the brunt of the effects of what's going on. So this is really trickling down to not just the big business that we can talk about, but those who this is more essential to them than you can think of, because it really puts food on the table for them. I mean, what would your message to them be? I mean, for them, some of them can't have alternative. We talk about inverters, we're talking about solar energy, we're talking about that might not be an option for them. What advice do you give to that woman who's running a small business who says, I simply can't operate with things like this?
It's really a precarious situation. The message that we're putting out is for entrepreneurs to look out for opportunities in gas, the distribution of gas cylinders, to look out for opportunities in solar, the distribution of solar lights, the distribution of solar components that are required. It is true that small businesses cannot afford the complex systems because they're quite expensive. So the impact is felt at a very micro level. And so we are asking entrepreneurs to pivot and look at opportunities that are brought about by load shedding, look at selling energy efficiency products and services to communities that are in need at affordable rates. And that is what so far we can do. It's really a terrible situation that we're finding ourselves in. We all have to change our rituals, our habits, and be more energy efficient to survive not only load shedding, but the increasing electricity prices that we are facing.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Thanks very much for giving us your time. And we certainly do appreciate your input here on the show, Bertha.
Thank you so much.
Most welcome. Bertha Dlamini is the president of African Women in Energy and Power.